Good morning. Thank you for joining us for what I hope turns out to be a very informative and interesting briefing. My name is Hans Johnson, and I am a senior fellow at the Public Policy Institute of California. Our virtual program today features the findings from PPIC's latest report, The Future of Higher Education Enrollment in California. The research and today's event are supported with funding from the College Futures Foundation and the Sutton Family Fund, and we'd like to thank them for their ongoing and generous support of all of our work at the Higher Education Center. I am especially indebted and appreciative of the excellent work of my co-author, Cesar Alese Perez. For today's program, I will present some of the key findings from the report and then answer questions from our virtual audience. If you have a question, please send it along with your name and organization to the email address on the screen, ppiceventquestions@gmail.com. As a reminder, PPIC is a public charity and does not take or support positions on any ballot measure, nor does it support, endorse, or oppose any political parties or candidates for public office. And now, on to the presentation. So, having said that PPIC is neutral and nonpartisan, I do have to provide a bit of a disclosure. I am a full and enthusiastic supporter of the Cal Band. This is a photo I took with my son playing in the band not that long ago. But aside from that, our institutional affiliations played no role in developing these projections. We used as robust a method as we could, and we applied it equally across sectors and institutions. So let me start us off by talking a little bit about the current place that we find ourselves in before moving on to the projections. California is in an unprecedented demographic position historically, and that has important implications for higher education enrollment in our state. In particular, the state has experienced a sharp slowdown in population growth. And in fact, until the most recent year, we were having population declines for several years, which is the first time in the history of our state that has occurred. California, for many, many decades prior to these slowdowns, which actually started a couple decades ago, but we used to lead the country in population growth. And that also meant that we had just tremendous demand for increases in going to college and strong increases in college enrollment at the same time. Now, with these demographic changes and the pandemic as well, we have seen declines in enrollment at some of our colleges and universities, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then finally, I think more generally, there have been increasing questions about the value of a college degree as sticker shock and other considerations have played a role in people's thinking about college. Having said that, PPIC survey shows that while there are concerns, the vast majority of Californians still want their children to go to college and earn at least a bachelor's degree. And the excellent work of my colleague, Marisol Cuellar Mejia, has answered the question, is college worth it? It's what we call an explainer on our website at www.ppic.org. And the answer is almost an unqualified yes, very much so. So I invite you to look at that work as well. Okay, so what did we do in this report? We developed new projections of undergraduate enrollment. That's both California residents and non-California residents at our colleges and universities. And we also examined completion rates, that is the share of students that will eventually earn a bachelor's degree. Those projections extend to 2040 and include the state's 4 major higher education sectors. Those are the California community colleges, the California State University, the University of California, and private nonprofit colleges. Our goal also, and I will briefly explain the drivers of the projected enrollment trends. And then finally, we assess the achievability of the state's degree attainment goal. And that goal is that 40% of 25 to 64-year-olds in California would hold a bachelor's degree by 2030. This is a statewide goal. And as we'll see when we get to some of the findings, our projections, which I would say are somewhat optimistic and aspirational, suggests that California should reach that goal. And in fact, maybe we should have a more ambitious goal, but we'll get to that in a minute. So let's talk about some of the recent trends and what's been happening in California. This is all systems combined. This is the total number of undergraduates in California. And you'll see that in 2008-17, we had a peak of a little over 2.6 million undergraduates in our state. And then we saw some declines. Some of those declines occurred before the pandemic, but the big decline occurred with the pandemic year to 2021, you'll see there. And we lost well over 200,000 undergraduates in our state. And again, this is really unprecedented, the size of and the quick change that occurred. But more widely, you'll see that there had been already a slowdown in the number of undergraduates, and that is driven partly by demographic drivers, again, which we'll get to. In terms of kind of understanding the context of where we are as a state with respect to college going, and here I'm focusing now on college completion, California has a lot of room for improvement. So when we think about enrollment growth, I think it's important to realize that many other states have far more of their students, recent high school graduates, for example, which is the most important time for college going or not, who go to college and complete college. So you'll see that states like Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Jersey, but even New York, have college completion rates of young adults that are around 50% or more. California is only at about 37%. I should note that this metric is attaining a college degree, a bachelor's degree by state of birth, which is a very good proxy for where you went to school. These are people who live anywhere in the United States, but for the California number here, were born in California. And if there are questions about that, we could talk about it. But the big picture here is just that California could have a substantial increase in enrollment just by increasing persistence and having more students go to college and complete college. Okay, and then finally, in terms of context, there are critical ages that we need to understand what's happening with college participation rates in those ages, because those are the ages where the vast majority of undergraduates attend college. And in our state, as well as nationwide, the key ages are 18 to 24-year-olds, really these traditional ages. There are not very many non-traditional age students. Certainly once you get to ages 30 and above, the share of the population there that are attending college as undergraduates is incredibly low. And so understanding what's happening in these very young adult ages is critical. Here you'll see that there was a big increase in participation rates between 2006 to 2020. And then you'll see the pandemic influence with the drop from 2020 to 2021. And again, our projections are that we will more than realize the drop from the pandemic and return to previous trends in increases in college participation rates that we saw prior to the pandemic, of course, starting off at a lower base than we otherwise would have because of the pandemic. We also rely in our projections on not only these projected college participation rates that I just spoke about, and to be clear too, we look at these rates as they trend by race, ethnicity, age, gender, and by system, and the systems that I already mentioned. And then we apply these participation rates to key age groups in California. And again, these key age groups are young adults, 18 to 21 especially, but also 22 to 24. And the California Department of Finance suggests that there will be very little, if any, growth in these age groups, with a notable decline in 18 to 21-year-olds near the end of our projection horizon. But this presents a challenge for the state and its institutions going forward to find students to enroll in their institutions. Having said that, there is some good news. As I noted earlier, college participation rates have been going up prior to the pandemic. And of particular importance are the number of high school graduates who have taken the college preparatory courses required for admission to UC and CSU. Those are known as the A through G courses. And here I'm showing you the trend from 2010-11 to 2020-21, which is the number of high school graduates didn't change much during this period. And our projections are that the number of high school graduates going forward isn't going to change very much, might go down even a little bit. But what did change a lot were the number of students who had taken these college preparatory courses. So that pool of students increased by a tremendous amount, over 60,000 students over this 10-year time frame. And that has important implications for where students go. Those A through G students are much more likely to go to UC, straight to a four-year college, which would be UC, the CSU system, or private nonprofits, and less likely to go to California community colleges. And so the community colleges are more likely to draw students who did not complete the A through G courses, and you'll see that that number actually declined over this time period. Our projections are that A through G completion will continue to increase. And there's a lot of good news, too, that is in the report that looks at how these changes have occurred for different race or ethnic groups. For example, Latinos have had among the strongest increases in A through G completion in our state, and of course are the single largest group of young adults in our state. So putting it all together, showing you now the end result is we project that an undergraduate enrollment at the University of California will continue to grow, and will continue to grow fairly robustly, increasing by around 50,000 or so during this time period. This is, again, because of increases in college participation rates and college readiness of California high school graduates. We also include some assumption about students coming to California from other states. The University of California is in a relatively advantaged position compared to our other systems in terms of having very high demand and being quite selective in terms of who is admitted. The California State University system is a little bit more of a mixed bag. Here you will see that in the most recent few years, the system actually experienced a decline in the number of undergraduates. There's tremendous variation across campuses, which we could get into if there are questions. Going forward, we project that the system will regain some of the, well, more than the number of students that it lost during the pandemic. And it's important to realize the scale here. The California State University system is substantially larger than UC or the private nonprofits in our state. So increasing from 400,000 to over 450,000 during this time period is still a large numeric gain, similar to UC's numeric gain. So it's not nothing. It just doesn't look quite as dramatic because the system as a whole is much larger. And then the private nonprofits in California have not seen much change in recent years. Our projections are that they will see modest increases for the same factors that I've already mentioned. But these are more modest gains than either for UC or CSU. Again, partly this is driven by just the system itself is not as large, certainly, as the California State University system. Again, these are undergraduate enrollment figures. Okay, and then we get to California's community colleges. The community colleges are really, honestly, the toughest one to project here because they've had such volatility, certainly with the pandemic, but even before that. And so here I'm just showing you some of the pandemic era changes, pre-pandemic to the pandemic. And you'll see that there were dramatic declines in the number of very young adults, especially 18 to 24-year-olds, but also people age 50 and over. Our focus at PPIC is on, especially in this report, is college completion with at least a bachelor's degree. So those young students are those who are most likely to be in the system for the purposes of transfer. The vast majority of young students in the system say their goal is to transfer to a four-year degree, four-year college, and earn a bachelor's degree. The decline of people age 50 and over we're much less concerned about. Often those students are in the system for one course, maybe two courses, and are taking adult enrichment type activities, which is great, but isn't the focus of our work. And you'll see that for the non-traditional age students, which do make up a larger share in the community colleges than in UC or CSU, the declines have been less dramatic. So putting it all together, you'll see again, historically, these pretty sharp declines in recent years. But even before that, you'll see declines in the community colleges. Their peak year was around 2008, for example, or 2007, in terms of enrollment. This is what we call head count, total number of students. If we did full-time equivalents, we would have similar trends, but very different levels. Very large share of community college students attend part-time. So, for example, if a student attends half-time, or 2 half-time students equal 1 full-time equivalent. In any event, we project, and I guess I would say this somewhat optimistic, that there will be increases in college attendance at the community colleges. Again, this is driven by college participation rates going up, and only a certain number of students able to go to UC, CSU, and the private nonprofits. Having said all that, I think there is a lot that can be done by the state and by our institutions to improve college enrollment and college completion. When we look at these numbers and then we translate them into college completion, and look at other trends that are happening in our state, we believe that the state will reach its college attainment goal that 40% of working age adults have a bachelor's degree by 2035. We're going to reach this for some good reasons, which is increasing college participation, increasing completion of those students who are in college, but also for some maybe not so good reasons. California, for example, loses substantial numbers of adults to other states who have lower levels of educational attainment. Generally, we tend to attract college graduates from other states more than we lose college graduates to other states. And so at the end of the day, we partly reach this goal because of that differential migration, which I would say is not a great way to reach the goal. And in fact, we recommend that the state set a different and more ambitious goal for college completion, and that goal focus on young adults in our state who went through our own education system rather than through importing or exporting college graduates to other states. And I already alluded to some of the numbers we saw in other states. From our perspective, a goal, for example, of 50% of California youth end up going through our system and from high school to college and college completion, earning a bachelor's degree would be an ambitious goal, but also a more appropriate and more focused goal. And one that, as I showed you, quite a few other states, not a lot, but the top states have already achieved that. I cannot overstate how important college readiness is among our high school graduates. We've had a lot of gains. We see, though, in work we're doing in other areas, and we did in this report too, wide variation across California high school districts in terms of college readiness. And that wide variation is not explained completely by differences in demographic or socioeconomic standing of the students in those institutions. So a lot of it is explained by the policies and practices of those local districts. For example, making the A3G courses not only courses that are expected for students to complete, that students would have to opt out of those courses rather than opt in of those courses before they graduate, but also ensuring that course schedules and the availability of those courses is meaningfully available to all students, so that A3G rates would increase. And again, we see some pretty strong increases in districts that have adopted a college-going culture, and not just college-going culture, but actual practices in terms of providing the courses that are necessary for students to be college ready. And then so often, and I understand there's a lot of angst about losing or finding additional students, and colleges worried about declines in enrollment. But the big picture to me is that the number of students who enter our colleges but then leave without finishing any of their goals, whether it's a vocational goal or a transfer goal for community college students, is phenomenal. So just simply increasing the persistence of students that are already in our system, have already said, they want to go to college, they've showed up, they've attended college, keeping them from leaving could have a huge impact. In fact, the largest impact on enrollment in our projections going forward. And then critical then to reaching this college attainment goal is improving transfer from California community colleges to four-year colleges. And we have a lot of work that we're doing at PPIC in that regard. There's some really good things that have happened. For example, the near elimination of remedial courses that prevent students from completing gateway courses, college-level courses in English and math, will pay dividends down the road. But there's a lot more that needs to be done there as well. So that concludes my formal presentation. We are now ready to start taking questions. So please remember that you can submit your questions to ppiceventquestions@gmail.com. And please include your name and organization, and I will call on you, and we will start right now with the questions. So our first question is, how might enrollment vary across the state and across campuses? This question comes from a policy researcher in Sacramento. And this is a great question. Our projections are statewide, but part of what was driving some of these trends statewide, especially, for example, if you look at CSU versus UC, was differences in terms of local drivers of enrollment, potential enrollment growth. And so in general, there are places that are growing more rapidly, San Joaquin Valley, the Inland Empire, and have greater growth in the number of high school students than in some other places. For example, in the Bay Area, and especially in San Francisco, there are challenges. Sonoma County, Sonoma State University has had challenges. So those differences across the state get realized in our statewide projections, but it also calls into discussion how the systems might best allocate funding for new enrollment growth, focusing on where students want to go and where students live, and maybe helping to identify ways that students might be able to attend campuses that are not necessarily, again, especially in the case of California State University systems, which their campuses are more likely to have commuter students than UC, for example, and then finding ways to make campuses that have availability more attractive to students who might live in places where there's less availability. Okay, so let me go to my next question. This is from Mateo in San Diego. Why is California's population not growing as fast as it used to? Will that change? And this is a great question, and I think all indicators are that it's not going to pick up to anywhere near where it used to be. And there are key drivers of that. First and foremost has been interstate outmigration from California. Those numbers have been substantially negative for quite a while now. Our state is very expensive. Housing is the main reason why we lose people to other states. And our housing prices just continue to be much higher than in the rest of the nation, even as our population has slowed down. And even when we lost population, we still had notable increases in housing costs. So because we don't see that changing anytime soon, that's a key driver. But the other key drivers, especially the one I'll note here briefly, and we have a lot of work on this in our Understanding California's Future area at PPIC and reports on our website and blog posts. But one of the key ones has been a really strong decline in birth rates. So the total fertility rate, which is the average number of children a woman would have in her lifetime, in California fell from well above the replacement level, from about 2.3 children per woman to now we're down around 1.5 children per woman. And over time, then that means we're going to have fewer students, and we already do have fewer students entering our K-12 system. That means eventually fewer students exiting our K-12 system, just because there are fewer children in our state. So we have another question from Elena in Los Angeles. Does California have the capacity to expand enrollment? So I'm really glad you asked that question. The report online discusses capacity and what it looks like. Our projections include both California undergraduates, which is the vast majority of undergraduates at our public systems, but also out-of-state students. But in general, our projections are very similar to those for what UC and CSU have planned for themselves or projected for themselves. That does mean, though, that there will be a need for increased investment, both to support the operating budget in supporting students who are in our state's systems, the state provides substantial direct payment subsidies to UC and CSU to fund enrollment and enrollment growth. But then we also need capital expenditures, and it's been a challenge in California. We haven't had a statewide higher education bond in quite a while, for example, that would help fund construction of either new buildings or infrastructure to provide increases in online education. And both of those are necessary and not cheap to affect some of, or to realize some of the projections that we've presented here. And let's see, another question comes from Jake in Merced. How will current and future budget deficits affect funding for increases in enrollment? So this is, the answer is it's uncertain, at least right now. The state has substantial reserves. Those reserves, and we have those because of forward thinking that has occurred on the part of policymakers in our state. And partly that's forward thinking occurred as a result of a lot of pain that we experienced during previous downturns in state revenue. And so just going back in time, UC and CSU, when we had some huge budget deficits year after year after year, more than 10 years ago, we're vulnerable, especially vulnerable. The community colleges are a part of the Proposition 98 guarantee. We don't have time to go into the details there, but that meant they were somewhat protected from budget cuts, not completely, but a lot more protected than UC or CSU. And because they're not protected, UC and CSU ended up during that round of budget cuts from state support, ended up increasing tuition quite a bit. They also increased aid for low and even middle income students. So at the end of the day, California went from a system of very low tuition for everybody to one of higher tuition for some, but still low tuition and maybe no, and in fact, no tuition for low and middle class students because of increases in California Student Aid Commission funding of Cal Grants and because of the institution's own increasing of funding for lower income and middle income students. So this is a very long answer to if the downturn continues and we exhaust the revenues that we've saved for the rainy day fund, then either we're going to have increases in tuition again, which can provide more slots for more students if you are able to effectively use that tuition to provide enrollment opportunities through increased aid for lower income students, while higher income students end up paying more. So I hope that was clear. And then I guess we have one more question. We're getting near the end of our time here, but one more question. This is from a researcher in Sacramento. What factors are affecting student persistence and what strategies would be most impactful to increase persistence? This is a great question. I think it varies across system. For UC, the vast majority of students do graduate, but not everybody does. CSU has had tremendous increases in graduation rates. We know that finances are a critical factor for many students, but there are other questions that I would love to have answered through surveying students who have left college and finding out why. The critical issues in terms of persistence, at least in the short run, really are at the community colleges. And there, I think it is clear that providing students with pathways, with opportunities, with information, with funding to help them attend full-time rather than part-time, encouraging students and helping students develop a very specific plan of taking courses throughout their years at the community colleges that lead to transfer. It means increasing agreements between UC, CSU, and the privates with the community colleges in terms of transfer articulation agreements. We're big fans of the associate degree for transfer, which CSU and the community colleges participate in. Also really excited about the new development of dual admission, that is students who would be admitted both to UC and CSU at the same time that they start their community college careers. There's a lot more upside potential there, I think, and CSU in particular has quite an ambitious plan there. So there are steps, again, that are things that are happening in the right direction, but certainly more is necessary. We have run out of our time. Thank you very much for your interest and for your attendance of this event. I would like again to thank the College Futures Foundation, the Sutton Family Fund, and all of you for joining us online. We would appreciate it if you would take a moment to give us your feedback on this event. This helps us improve future events as well. Please scan the QR code on the screen and complete the short survey. Again, thank you very much. Have a good rest of your morning and a good afternoon.